Okay. Take a little break. Hi. We're starting? Great. Yeah, we'll let you all filter in. Those in the rain want to come hang out? Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to kick it off. Ready to go. So hi, everyone. Sarah Martinez here. Chief Revenue Officer at Integral Ad Science. We're the leading global measurement and optimization platform, helping large brand marketers like Molson Coors make sure they are in brand-safe environments, their ads are viewable and being seen by real humans, all of the good things to make sure you're driving media effectiveness and outcomes. And a huge thank you to Brand Innovators for hosting us here. I love these events. And love the opportunity to be up on stage with two fantastic female leaders. So would love to just start quick introductions, if you don't mind, of where you're at and what you do at Molson.
Hi, I am...
Is it on?
Hello, I am Courtney Benedict. Love to support Michelle. I'm a VP of Marketing over our above premium beer brands. So that's Blue Moon, Peroni, Limey Soul, and I've been at the company for about 9 years now. So clearly a believer in our organization and what we do, and our leadership, much of which is female. So excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, and I'm Leslie Malcom, and I'm the... Thanks, Michelle.
This is a fun one if anyone wants to come over. They're looking.
I am the VP of Marketing for Molson Coors Canada. So I oversee the full portfolio of brands in Canada, and I have been with the business for 10 years. So similar to Courtney, something's working at this point. And I think I love Molson as much as I do today as I did 10 years ago, which is pretty special.
Amazing. And both of you about 9 to 10 years. So let's back it up a little. Career journey, give us a sense of your journey into marketing and into the brand world.
I feel like mine might be a bit trite, but I was taking some marketing classes at university, like one does, and one of my professors went very deep into the campaign for Real Beauty, which I was just hearing Fernando Machado talk earlier today about, and I was like, I must work at Unilever, I must work in marketing. And thankfully, I was able to set my sights on that and achieve it. After failing once, of course, there's always a failure in every good journey. And I started marketing at Unilever. I was there for 5 years. Was on Dove, but was unfortunately on the category of deodorants. And if anyone has ever worked on a category like that, you're working on sweat and odor, and attending lots of hours of focus groups where you're learning about sweat and odor all the time. So after a bit of time there, I said, I want to go to a company where people actually truly, truly care about the brands that they're consuming, because it says something about them. And so that's why I set my sights on Molson Coors, because people frankly give a shit about the beer, the beverages that they're drinking, and it has a badge value consideration, and have been in marketing at Molson Coors ever since. So that was my marketing journey.
Fantastic.
Yeah, mine is... it was a pretty straight path. I started out of university at a big Canadian restaurant company, and I was in brand for them for several years. And so it was all about, hot food and beverage and bringing people together over food and creating connections and the moments that happen around a table, which personally has always been a big motivator of mine. And then professionally, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot that I got to do marketing, which I'd always wanted to do in that field. But similar to Courtney, I then sort of began to think about, okay, what might be a natural next step? And I was very clear that a company like Molson was high on my list because it took the best of what I had from the big restaurant industry, but I think took it one step further. And the same idea for me that gets me so excited is our beverages sit at the heart of so many important moments, big and small. And it's a real gift, I think, to be a marketer and get to build brands that play such an integral part in the consumer's life. And then for us as marketers to also enjoy our brands and to see the role they play at a place like Cannes or, at a barbecue. It's just a constant reminder of the impact that our brands can have and the role they play in life.
Well, speaking of Cannes, and we're at the center of inspiration and creativity here. There's an amazing reason why you are both attending Cannes on top of other reasons, but would love for you to share. A big congrats on Molson representing at Cannes this year.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited by some of the work we have here this year. One piece of work in particular that I think we're going to share in a moment is for our brand called Molson, which lots of you have probably heard of, but within Canada, it's sort of our big beer brand. And the context before we play the video is that Molson has forever been synonymous with hockey. The two go hand in hand in Canada in a really special, really meaningful way. And we had an opportunity this year with the Women's Hockey League, the PWHL, and it just sort of hit us like a ton of bricks. All of a sudden, we realized that we have helped build and cement hockey within Canadian culture, but exclusively men's hockey. And we then very clearly saw the opportunity to play the similar role within women's hockey. And it's been such a privilege to help be a part of something from the very beginning. And it's more of a long game approach of like, we want to help foster and build, and we want to help shine a spotlight on female hockey players. So this piece of work, I think, tells the story better than I can.
When's the winning announcement?
You know, we've been shortlisted for 5. We are eagerly hoping that something comes through. But I think what's so impactful about that work is 2 things. One, more broadly, the reception we got from society was incredible. And I think what that did for me was help show that the world is ready to see women's sports rise. And we didn't have to convince anyone or sell anyone. You watch the work, you see the idea, and it speaks for itself. And the response we got from men and women broadly across all of North America was such a strong testament to the time is now. And brands like Molson do have a responsibility to help support the growth of female sports. And then secondly, there was a really clear, tangible benefit within our own company. And I think for women in our business to see us taking big, bold actions and to put our money where our mouth is and to make sure that we are not only, fostering the growth of men's hockey, but also beginning to help rise with female sports was very well received. I think it's important for our people to be able to see themselves in our work.
I agree. Very impactful. And, being leaders at a large global company, you're obviously making an impact from, a consumer perspective. But what are some tactical ways you've paid it forward for women in DE&I initiatives?
Yeah, I think at Molson Coors in particular, one of the things that might be unique about our organization is both our Chief Commercial Officer and our Chief Marketing Officer are both females. So as a jumping off point, it just feels... It feels inclusive through and through. And I think that is something that has not always been the case, particularly in the beer industry, which has been quite male-dominated for some time. So I think at the core, we have a nice jumping off point just because of those women in leadership roles. But I think organizationally, one of the key levers that we pull to make sure that we're pushing forward DEI initiatives, particularly including women, is that we have an employee resource group, shorthand called BREW. Michelle in the audience, who's been very vocal, was also a core leader of that group. BREW stands for Building Relationships, Empowering Women. And it is just a key enabler for making sure that the women in the organization and other folks in the organization, honestly, there are tons of male allies and otherwise, are able to have the more difficult conversations that might not have the main stage. So organizing coffee chats, panels on topics like interpersonal relationships and asking for what you believe you are worth in the workplace and things that, again, might always make the main stage is one of the key ways that Molson Coors drives DEI initiatives.
That is fantastic. I love the acronym.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Courtney said. I think we're really lucky that at the core of who we are highly inclusive certainly within marketing. And so the day-to-day environment, I think, fosters itself to a place where women and men can show up truly as their whole selves and are embraced and celebrated for how they come to the table. But that doesn't mean that we don't still have to take strategic initiatives and go out of our way to create the right behaviors to build the business forward. And so one of the key areas that I've probably gotten the most value out of is mentorship with, and we have a female specific mentorship program where we paired senior leaders within the business with more junior employees, and really just that idea of how powerful connection is, and the opportunity to create conversation and to create community is so important. And I think it's particularly important for the more junior employees, particularly females who are finding their place in the workforce. And they need, role models, and they need people that they can talk to and that they can lean on in a safe environment. And I've personally gotten a lot out of that, both as a mentor and a mentee. And I've seen the value in other employees who find themselves with a source of connection that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
And I think it's important it comes from the top down too. I mean, what you were saying, I'll do a quick plug, but at IAS we have a female CEO, a female CHRO, a female CFO, and a female CRO with a female majority board. So I know.
Amazing.
Yes. So it is an incredible, when you really feel the power of that inclusivity, as well as working with the ERG groups that we have too, it just changes the whole mindset. It brings diverse of thought, and really just powers innovation in every which way.
Yeah, and I think it's I think the benefit of clearly in your organization of having that many females is it really does begin to trickle through the whole organization. And so there can be big initiatives like Brew or like mentorship programs, but it also can be, I have a little boy and I leave every day at 4:00 and I am unapologetic about it. I know I work really hard and I know I'm, get my work done, but I leave at 4 so I can get home in time to kind of be with him before bed. And part of me doing that is because it's the right thing for me to do for my family. But I also want to help show all the other females in the organization that it's okay to leave at 4 if you need to get home to be with your family. And I think the more that we model that and the more that we set the tone, the more we're going to change behaviors for the long term and make that more broadly acceptable.
Agree. Leading by example is whether you're a male or a female, I think a very important thing. And have there been other ways that you've, really served as a megaphone for female colleagues, within your experience? Anything that you've done that you can share in particular?
Yeah, I think for me, sometimes being a megaphone for other female colleagues is really simple. If you're in a big meeting and you hear someone make a comment that might ordinarily get overlooked, I think you can say, oh, Michelle, that's a great point. Would you mind, talking about it in a bit more depth? Or let's go back to what Michelle mentioned. I think that was something really special. And I think just driving a little bit more attention to what might otherwise be overlooked is a very simple way that you can be a megaphone for females. I think just maybe I'll add one more thing is additionally, probably a lot of us in this room get asked to be a mentor of some nature, and they don't always have to be the same relationships. Some can be constant and time-consuming, and others can be quick and oriented around a singular topic. But I think the other way to give females a voice is just to be that kind of source of advice, comfort, encouragement, by kind of accepting any of those propositions or offers that might come your way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think one of the pieces of advice I always give people in the business is particularly linked to mentorship is be really specific about two things. One, like what need do you have out of the mentorship? And then be really choiceful that it's not about any mentor, it's about the right mentor. And I think particularly when we're talking about female inclusion and acceptance and finding space for females within the organization, the fit has to be right. And I really encourage people to go out and actually have multiple mentors with really specific. So, I might have a mentor that helps me juggle mother and parenthood. And I might have another one that helps me, find my assertiveness around the board table. And I think that's also really helpful for women to feel like they've got an army, or at Molson we talk about it as your personal board of directors. And I think the more senior you get in the business, the more you're able to help find those kind of opportunities. And I love kind of spotting people that I think might be a good pair and then helping to foster that connection on their behalf. So that's certainly just all comes back to mentorship, but something I'm a really big believer in. I think the more people have like places to go to talk to someone and to share, the more we're all going to benefit.
Just quickly to build on what Les just said, she's coached her team brilliantly on this because someone from her team asked me to be a mentor, but they said specifically, look, I don't want to meet for an hour every 2 weeks or every month. I want to come to you with a specific agenda, specific topics, and use your time as efficiently as I possibly can. And I think that was direct coaching. And one of the ways that I think we can be a mentor to more people is if we have those more focused relationships.
And there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship, right?
Yes.
And mentorship and allyship. And I think as leaders, we need to teach the younger generations that there is a difference. And having a mentor is one thing, but having an executive sponsor in the room when big decisions are being made is another. And I think it's important that they understand the distinction, but also understand how to get the most value out of those relationships that they're building, right?
Yeah. The other thing, I think, let's not forget how hard it is to be a good mentor. And I still feel like I learn every day how to be a mentor. Like my number one, I always want to just give advice. And one of the things I've really been working on this year is, as a mentor, your job is to ask really good questions, not to give advice. And that's something I'm actively practicing from a development opportunity right now.
What have you each learned from one of your mentors?
I would say I've learned to embrace and celebrate what makes me uniquely me. And I think I probably for a while, I am run highly empathetic. And that's something that for a long time I almost sort of diminished. And I said, I don't know that I want to be an empathetic leader. And then one of my mentors helped me understand that my superpower was that I'm highly empathetic, which means people trust me and want to kind of work with me, but I'm also quite assertive. And he was like, the balance of empathy and assertiveness is where you find your magic. And I think it was really helpful for me to flip something that I didn't always see as a positive, being empathetic in the workplace. And it helped kind of turn that into something that I felt like I could own and I could make my kind of badge, which when you create that sort of brand for yourself, I think it's really freeing to know how you want to show up every day. And then you show up consistently and your team know who you are and what you are. And so for me, it was probably leaning into something like empathy, which I hadn't always seen as a positive, and celebrated it.
Love it.
I think Les and I may share some mentors, so maybe getting some similar coaching. But I think for me, a strength is generally like calm amidst the chaos. And I got some coaching from a mentor that said, it's great that you can be calm and always give calm recommendations in a situation, but I don't know if you are the most passionate about this recommendation, the least passionate about this recommendation. You're kind of like, even keeled to a fault, where sometimes they need to know, I vehemently disagree with this decision, or this is the best idea I've ever heard. I feel so strongly that if we don't fund it, we're making a massive mistake. So I think with coaching of just, making sure the clarity of the strength of your passion for whatever it is you're recommending or asserting was information that really helped me on my personal journey.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a few more minutes, so I'll do one or two more questions. But just to go back to you feeling confident in your role to leave at 4 p.m. to, make sure that you're home for your son. We have 3 working mothers up here. And what's been kind of that most rewarding aspect of managing the successful career along with, managing the day-to-day?
Yeah, I think a couple things come to mind right away. I think one, it's been really freeing for me to be true to myself. And I love being a mother more than anything. But I also really fucking love being a businesswoman. I love what I do. Woohoo! And I think it's I think in society, typically it was sort of like you picked one or the other, and you might be judged if you picked one versus the other. And I have really leaned into the fact that I can do both things, and both can be right, and both at different times are going to take different priority. But I know the center point is someone who is ultimately really fulfilled, because I have both sides of the equation. And so that's one thing that has been very helpful to me as I've kind of headed into the motherhood journey. And then secondly is I have a 2.5-year-old boy, and I love the fact that he is going to grow up in a household with a working mother, and someone who is a primary contributor within the household, and someone who does take time to prioritize my work and my purpose and what fuels me. And a few, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, that wasn't the case, or wasn't as common. And I get really excited by setting the example and showing him what his mom can do, and hopefully what is going to be much more common in the future.
Cheers to you.
I think for me, if I'm being brutally honest, the most rewarding periods at work are those weeks where you feel like you are crushing both dimensions of your life. Like you delivered an incredible presentation, and your superiors think the world of you at work, and you go home and you pick up your kid from daycare or nanny, and they rush into your arms, and you feel so connected, and you're like, God, I managed to do both. Like, I am crushing it. I feel like that
happens every day, right?
Yeah, every day. That is, I think, the most rewarding. But I think also recognizing that is, not every day, and it is, not even half the time necessarily. This weather is getting really great. And so I think probably the second most rewarding is acknowledging when you're unable to over-deliver on both dimensions and having real conversations with colleagues about it, where you own it. Like having a team meeting where you're like, oh, I feel like I struck out as a parent, or, hey team, I wanted to get you this, buttoned up this or that today, but I actually spent time at my kid's game last night and I wasn't able to make it work. I think just being honest about that is probably like the second most rewarding bit of trying to balance both.
Well, I think we can all say we are crushing it this week because we are balancing what we can. We're building amazing connections here in Cannes, and obviously still having to manage what's going on at home while being here. It doesn't stop. And so thank you for sharing that. I'll end with one last question here. So just a little bit more forward thinking and actionable. What is one action that you plan to take? It could be big or small, coming out of Cannes to, continue to progress DE&I.
I think for me, watching actually the work that Les shared, and watching a lot of the work here that is actually female-centric is extremely motivating. I think we talk so much about inclusion, and a lot of times that's like the bare minimum level of acceptance. So featuring a representative amount of women or whomever else in advertising, but it's not really putting them at the center. And I think what I love about that work is that it is, female-centric. So I think something that I would want to do is do more work like that. And secondarily, just making the space for conversations that are kind of like DEI-centric in the day-to-day, like weekly team meetings, making sure people can bring outside-in examples to help motivate, just like that work motivated me.
It's a great answer. I think for me, it would be, looking down into the future is I hope that work like that isn't getting celebrated because it's so different. And instead work like that is just the work that we're doing, and that we get that balance right, and that the pendulum is swung. I think we are making the right steps, and we're hearing it through lots of the presentations here this week. But I think now is when we have to start turning the inspiration into action, and we have to start doing better and doing more. And so my hope is by 2029 or whatever the year is in the glass ball, that a lot more of work like that is the norm.
I love hearing that. You're both very inspirational. Molson's very lucky to have you. And thank you for everyone hanging out with us these past few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.